In a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of town, there stood an old, dilapidated house owned by Mr. Okoro, a reclusive and peculiar landlord. I had rented the place out of desperation, as it was the only accommodation I could afford after moving to the city for work. The house always had an eerie aura, with its creaking floors and the strange, unsettling silence that enveloped it at night. But I dismissed these feelings, attributing them to my overactive imagination and the stress of my new job. One evening, I returned home after a long day, my body aching and my mind foggy. As I unlocked the door, a strange smell hit me, something foul, like decaying meat. Wrinkling my nose, I checked the kitchen, suspecting that some food had gone bad. But everything was in order. The smell seemed stronger near the back of the house, where a small, neglected garden lay. Curiosity piqued, I grabbed a flashlight and headed outside. The garden was overgrown with weeds, and the soil looked freshly disturbed in one corner, as if someone had been digging recently. My heart began to race as a thought I couldn't quite grasp started to form in my mind. I shook my head, dismissing it. It's probably just an animal, I muttered to myself, but the unease lingered. The following day I noticed Mr. Okoro standing. He looked up as I approached, his expression a strange mix of annoyance and fear. "What are you doing here?" he snapped. His voice unusually harsh. "I just thought I'd do some gardening," I lied, my eyes fixed on the patch of disturbed soil. Mr. Okoro's gaze followed mine, and his face darkened. "Stay out of here," he said, his tone final. "It's none of your business." That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept returning to Mr. Okoro's strange behavior and the sickening smell. I decided I had to know what was hidden in the garden, even if it meant risking the wrath of my landlord. Around midnight, I sneaked out with a small shovel, my heart pounding. I made my way to the spot Mr. Okoro had been guarding so closely. The soil was loose and easy to dig through, but each movement felt heavier, as if the earth itself was resisting my intrusion. After a few minutes, I hit something solid. My breath caught in my throat as I brushed away the dirt. It was a sack, tied tightly with rough rope. Trembling, I hesitated before pulling it open. Inside, wrapped in stained cloth, was something round and pale. I recoiled, my heart hammering as I realized what it was: a human head, eyes open, mouth frozen in a silent scream. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. Panic surged through me, and I dropped the shovel, my mind screaming at me to run, to get away from this place. But I knew I couldn't leave things as they were. I had to call the police. As I turned to head back inside, I froze. Mr. Okoro was standing at the edge of the garden, his face illuminated by the dim moonlight. His eyes, cold and calculating, were fixed on me. He took a step forward, his voice low and menacing. "I warned you to stay away," he said softly. "Now you've seen too much." I backed away, my hands shaking. I'm calling the police," I stammered, fumbling for my phone, but before I could dial, he lunged at me, knocking the phone from my hand. We struggled, his grip iron strong, his face twisted with rage and desperation. Somehow, I managed to break free, kicking him hard in the stomach. He fell back, gasping, and I ran, not daring to look back. I raced to my neighbor's house, pounding on the door and screaming for help. The police arrived within minutes, their flashing lights piercing the darkness. They found Mr. Okoro still in the garden, standing over the open grave. He was arrested on the spot, his face a mask of fury and defeat. In the days that followed, the full horror of what I had uncovered came to light. The head belonged to a local man who had gone missing weeks earlier. Mr. Okoro, it turned out, had been involved in some twisted ritual, believing that burying the head would bring him wealth and power. He had chosen his own property as the site for his dark deed, thinking no one would ever discover his secret. I moved out of the house as soon as I could, unable to bear the thought of staying there another night. The place has since been abandoned, its dark history known to all. No one dares go near it now, and the garden remains overgrown, a grim reminder of the evil that once lay hidden beneath the soil. As for me, I still have nightmares about that night. The sight of that face in the ground haunts me, and I can never shake the feeling that, somehow, Mr. Okoro's curse still lingers in the air, waiting for its next victim.